So the next thing I want to get into is skills, where the wall that you'll often hit before you start to leverage skills is you try to do the same thing over and over again, or at least multiple times, and you get a slightly different response each time, or maybe you just get sick of writing up the description for the prompt of what you're trying to do. This is what pushes us towards wanting to create skills. Skills are just a combination of prompts and scripts. The more scripted your skill is, or the more code-based it is, that's the more deterministic it's going to be, which is also going to mean that it has a more rigid outcome, but it also uses fewer tokens because it's just running scripts. And then the more prompt-based your skill is, the more it's going to burn through your tokens, and the more probabilistic the outcome is going to be, but the more flexible around the edges it'll likely be. So I'm going to go through and continue the example we've been working off of, where the first thing we did was we created the prompting to go and access and run a query in Snowflake. And then the second thing we did was we added that access to the CloudMD file. And now I'm going to start to leverage that for something I might have to do for some stakeholders. So I'm going to say, give me a monthly digest of insights for sales data for my executive stakeholders based on how we're doing for close won deals and largest loss deals. So you'll also note I went through and turned on bypass permissions. I had to turn that setting on, make sure I was good with that, and then restart Claude. If you want to do that too, you can, and just make sure it's like targeted at the one folder so you're not breaking stuff on your machine. Another thing you can do if you're worried about, breaking stuff on your machine is do regular backups, either local or cloud-based. I probably recommend that, especially when you're first getting used to YOLO shipping with Claude Code. So a couple things you can see as this is running. It's failing a bunch of stuff. That's exactly what I was hoping for, but we'll let it ride out here and see if it uses our CloudMD file to get that access to Snowflake. And then if it goes through the process of creating this insight, and then on this workflow after we've done it, then I'm just going to tell Claude walk through what the architecture of the skills look like, where those are stored, and how to call those skills moving forward. So you can kind of follow along with Claude Code's thought process on how it builds out this or answers this question, where it's using these fields from Snowflake. It's looking at where the data runs, what the fields are based on my prompt up there. That's a good kind of plug for the value of context engineering. If you have a really clean set of data that's well documented, whether that's in dbt or somewhere in your semantic layer, it makes it a lot easier and more accurate and reliable for users to access that data, whether it be with Claude or whether it be with, an analytics tool like Omni or Hex or something else. Having well curated data sets with well documented data makes that actually work, which is pretty great. Okay, so now we've gotten through the prompting there, and we have a few different options. We can either do it as HTML digest, which is recommended, PowerPoint deck, Word, or plain email summary. Depending on your vibe, you can go with whatever you want. I'm going to do the HTML digest. I tend to like those and say, let's see, just this month for now, or schedule it monthly. I'm going to say just this month for now because I want to triage it a little bit. If we want to schedule it monthly, we can just tell it, hey, schedule this monthly. And we can go up here to more and then set up a routine that's going to essentially function like a cron job or something that runs based on a specific schedule on when we want that to trigger. If we want it to automatically trigger to our stakeholders, which I would kind of warn you on at least at first, you can do that with a Google Auth flow by going through and having it send via Gmail. What I would probably do at first, though, is run this a few times, review it, make sure you audit it, check the queries, check the outputs, and after it's reliably and repeatedly done that, maybe like 3 to 5 times, then get to the point of where maybe it's sent with a disclaimer that notes that it was generated with AI or whatever you want to say, and then have all of the audits and the data lineage there for sending it to those stakeholders. Okay, so now it's still, I guess you could call it thinking, or whatever computers do, and going through. It has a design plan. That's one thing to note here. If you want, you can add in like design skills for having a consistent output. So right now, it's not necessarily going to know how consistent of an output to have, or if you have specific company fonts, layouts, all that stuff, I would bake that into your skill. So then each time you're generating a report or generating, similar reports, they're going to look the same. If you look at the Spicy Data website, a lot of that is built in a way where it's in the Spicy Data color palette and themes. And then there's also some abilities to switch between those different colors, or you can switch to Matisse mode, my personal favorite, to view the stylized stuff because it's just been built out as an HTML digest. So I'm going to let it keep on running here for a bit, and then once this is done running, we'll pause and take a look at that and then see how we can put that into a repeatable skill. Okay, so I let it cook for a little bit. Now we've got our digest that can be sent out. Obviously, there's a fair amount of stuff that wants to be, well, not necessarily obvious, but there's a fair amount of stuff we still might want to tweak. This is what we've got as a sales digest. It shows us some numbers, won deals, win rates, large losses, the story for the month, the trend, top closed won deals, top closed or largest loss deals. Has a source here from the table. I might even go as far as to say, I want to have SQL lineage for each of these charts. So if I wanted to go and audit this, I could. That's typically what I do. But for the sake of brevity, I like this. It looks decent. If I want to ship it as is, I'm just going to go and say, give me a link to view and share this, and then create a skill that I can call at any time to run the same report. If I hadn't built out a skill here, if I went through and prompted and asked for the same thing in a separate window, Claude's not going to know exactly what to build. So and this is the wall and the pain that users typically run into, is they're like, hey, I built this really cool thing. This was awesome. Maybe some stakeholder really liked it. And then you go and try to do the same thing again. And it's, ends up looking totally different. So this is letting us know that Anthropic has a skills creator. You can massage and tweak and optimize this a fair amount. We'll get into that when we talk about how you can scale Claude across teams, because that's a whole different set of walls that you run into when you're trying to make it so that the environment that you're building out is going to mesh and vibe with the environment that your team members are building out, and then also put controls and parameters and guardrails in place so that you don't have, different skill levels detracting from others, but instead you have everybody's skills compounding and abilities compounding because you have it properly managed and checked into Git and all that kind of fun stuff. So, all right, but let's check this link for the first thing. Let's see if I can copy this link. I just want to open it in Safari. Okay, so now I'll let it cook for a bit and created a skill for the monthly sales digest. That's how you'd call that skill. By default, it's creating it as a global skill, so I just ask it anywhere. If I just want this to fire when I'm functioning in this Claude data exercise folder, like if I'm creating some different environments, I'm going to say only on this skill and in that folder. It's going to think a little bit. It's moving for me. I was just being lazy, but okay, so now I got that located in my Claude folder. It's kind of interesting. I was like, oh, you can't see it there. So I prompt Claude and it says, yeah, it's there. You just gotta look a little bit harder for it. So if I go to this folder, it's not showing up by default. But if you do Command Shift period on a Mac, and that pops this open, you can go to your .claude skills, and then this will show, here's my monthly sales digest skill that has some scripts, and then it has the skill MD file. So the skills, again, this is a Python script for the generate digest, and then the skill MD file is going to be essentially like the prompt that's being saved to be used in conjunction with that Python file. You can continue building out and refining skills, or you can combine multiple skills together, which we'll talk about later, orchestrate those skills. But this is where you would start with the skills. So we'll pause for now.